Okay, let's talk about Syria. We do know that the Syrian government did some air raids on the ISIS strongholds. Uh, However, apparently when they did that, they also hit some sort of like ISIS or rebel chemical compound or stockpile. That being the case, the real fault here is not the fault of the Syrian government because they're trying to push out the ISIS and the rest of the Wahhabi terrorists who our country is also fighting. The United States obviously is at war with ISIS and other Wahhabi type extremist groups. Like Al Qaeda, Al Shabaab, Boko Haram, and put another Arabic term, and there's probably quite a few more of these organizations. But what's interesting about this is that you'll notice that on some of the news channels, and especially the leftist news channels and Islamist news channels or media outlets, even organizations like CARE here in the United States, you'll notice that they portray it as being some sort of chemical attack by the Syrian government. However, the reality is that the chemicals that have been used, the majority of it is actually coming from the ISIS and rebel groups. When I say ISIS and rebels, because it's really they're about the same group of people. When the rebels get really pissed off, all they do is join ISIS. So the rebels and ISIS, the common thing that they have between them is that they're both Wahhabi terrorist groups. One's not as severe, maybe they're at least not that we know of. They may not be filming themselves cutting heads off, but once they want to, all they do is they go from one rebel group into the ISIS group, and they do that on their own. So, point being, Sunni Wahhabi groups are the groups that the Syrian government are fighting, and the United States should have done more to crush them. However, during the Obama administration, we had quite a bit of Islamist people allied with the leftists here in the United States. They didn't want to do that because that would be basically undermining their goals of world domination via caliphate. So, in order to understand the situation, you have to understand that the Syrian government represents a secular Alawite Shiite form of government. So it's not a religious government. They call him a dictator, but what's ironic about it is if he wasn't there, you'd have an ISIS leader there, like al-Baghdadi or something. I mean, if that's what people want, that's pretty scary. So, yeah, Assad might not be the best choice in the world, but at the same time, a secular Alawite Shiite leader who allows people to have, regular social freedoms um, should not be replaced by an ISIS fundamentalist. Okay, the same thing happened in Egypt. You had people like Egyptians like protesting against General Sisi, where he's what do you call it? He's also a secular leader, and instead they wanted to replace him with Morsi, who's a Muslim Brotherhood leader. And again, here in the United States, CARE supports you know the Muslim Brotherhood and CARE, Morsi type individuals. In fact, some of the CARE members and even like people who are from other organizations, like from in the United States that are like Sunni based American Muslim or so-called Muslim organizations, they back up all these kind of Islamist organizations outside of the United States. So really, they're kind of like a lobby, for Islamists. Here they lobby kind of in a quote peaceful, positive sort of way. Sort of, if you want to talk, describe it like that. But outside of the United States, if these guys fly over there, they probably be one of those guys. I mean, you don't know. Um, just look at the situation with the Linda Sarsour. She probably supports Palestinian terrorism outside of the United States, but inside the United States, she's anti-Trump. and joins, leftists in order to do so. But then what's funny about this is leftists, if they ever came under the government of any of the people that she or anybody like her supports, they would be suffering, because look at ISIS. You have a situation with ISIS. As soon as they take control of an area, gay people, Christians, Shiite Muslims, they all get massacred and murdered. Well, why is that? Because that's how they believe. They want to have a world, dominant religion that's going to take over the whole world. They want a caliphate, which is basically like a globalist dictator. And it's kind of ironic too, because they talk about Assad being a dictator, but in reality they want a caliphate dictator, like a caliph, to rule the world. So that's the irony in this. The next time you hear this stuff on the news, just be mindful that anytime there's stuff being said about Assad, it's really that it's not that if he's a dictator or not, that's really irrelevant to the equation here. What they're trying to push is a globalist dominant government or a caliphate.